Guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another episode of the wonderful The Arsenio's High Performing Podcast. Man, I'm your host as always. So grateful to be back. And today we're going to be getting into the goodness of a lot of different things. So what I want to talk about, especially today, is what is driving your behavior. Now, you guys probably heard my my podcast previously, and things continue to get even more odd at this ridiculous ass place that I'm at right now. But you know what? I want to make it as worthwhile as possible. Okay. And because it's Monday, that's exactly what I do. That's exactly what I have to do. I have to remind myself of something simple, right? When I wake up in the morning, I'm very grounded. I'm in the present moment and I'm in control. And that's what I do. I have a tendency of feeling the truth of this moment, right? Facing life as it is. Look honestly at what I like, I guess, and what I don't like, but also staying fully engaged with life as it exists today. Presence is everything. Being emotionally present, spiritually present, vibrantly present, at the same time allowing your ambitions to change and adapt and evolve and pivot. There have been many seasons of my life, okay? When I was in between things such as like struggling and figuring things out, such as what I'm doing right now, unsure of my next move. Okay. But whether it was building, I don't know, a coaching practice, navigating uncertainty, or even trying to determine the next chapter, which I'm trying to do right now after, TOEFL has ceased to exist. But I also noticed something interesting. I could still experience joy throughout those circumstances. We're going to be diving into an amazing podcast series coming up really soon in terms of like the mid-year review, okay, because it's June right now, although July should be the mid-year, but still. But nonetheless, circumstances, we always have aspirations, but we do not feel the aspirations. We feel the circumstances and all the different feelings that we have throughout that time. See, we can, in this moment right now, experience the joy and the gratitude and still feel energized by purpose. And so, just recently when I was, reviewing my weekend and stuff like that, regardless of all the things that will not matter, and let's just say a week, a month, especially when my baby is born, none of the stupidity and the ignorance that I have to deal with matters anymore. Because whether what I bring to the table, I already know that I am substantially that number one guy, no matter what. And again, considering the new practice that I'm doing in terms of teaching, this is just literally up-leveled me into a stratospheric realm in which I am it's just such a divinity in terms of what I bring. And that joy that I bring to the Saturday morning students in class, bringing that passion, that enthusiasm, and having the two students at the end of class say, "Oh my God, teacher, are they going to switch at the end of this, this term?" And I'm like, "Oh man, well, they have a tendency of doing their own thing. I really don't know much about these folks anymore. I am here to perform at my absolute best in a way that has never been done before." And that's what I do. And those two students were sad. And they were like, "Man, we really hope that we see you in the next term." And I'm like, "Hey, I hope I do too, because this is by far the best class I've had in more than a decade." And so those moments remind me that fulfillment doesn't have to wait until everything's figured out, such as what I'm doing right now. So today, I hope you find that joy, that presence, and that peace in this moment. And I hope you're continuing to architect the future you desire. So my biggest thing for you today, and we're going to be diving into this because behaviors are absolutely important. I want to challenge you with something as simple as this. What's driving your behavior? This may be one of the most important questions you can ask yourself. Getting distracted? What's driving that behavior? Overeating? What's driving that behavior? Feeling angry at your spouse? What's driving that behavior? Your child suddenly flips out while you're making lunch? What's driving that behavior? A boss who wants to, and again, I'm saying this for myself, a boss who was once supportive suddenly becomes extremely difficult. What's driving his behavior? You missed a coaching session, such as what I do, like in terms of TOEFL. What's driving that behavior? If we never examine why we're on track or why we're off track, we never gain the insight necessary to grow. So mainly, like highly successful people are deeply unhappy because they don't understand the forces driving their own actions. They're caught in those cycles of stress and fear and fight and flight and freeze and emotional reactivity, such as the most richest man in the world saying, "Oh, you need to take back your country from these immigrants." And I'm like, "Bro, you're a fucking immigrant. You literally colonized the South Africa. What are you talking about? And those things right there, and being caught in that fight, in that flight, in that bigotry, in that ignorance, in that racism, like at the end of your life, people are gonna look back and say, wow, the richest man in the world, one of the most racist motherfuckers to ever live. What drives that behavior of his hate? Well, if you look at his father, that's it. There you go. There it is. Number one, exhibit A. At the same time, I would never say that. My father and my mother was exactly who they were, and they have nothing to do with me. And so sometimes people have a tendency of sabotaging opportunity. Sometimes they take themselves out of the very thing that they want most. They move between upward spirals and downward spirals without understanding why. So without insight, influence becomes impossible. And you can't effectively influence your own life or understand others without understanding what's driving your behavior. So one thing, and especially, again, since, I think it would have to be probably, oh my God, this had to be probably around April 20th. This is when everything changed. So first month being absolutely amazing and doing so many different things and just having an absolute blast. And then next thing you know, there was just one individual who I just recently saw throwing a tantrum, and 3 other classes saw him throwing a tantrum, just jumping up and down and saying, well, and Ty. And I'm like, holy shit, that student was in my class. And no wonder he is the main reason. He is culprit number one in terms of what and how this place is turned upside down and how it is against me now. Funny, huh? But we got to be careful with assumptions, getting back into it when it comes to other people. This question requires humility. So if your spouse behaves in a certain way and you immediately decide why they're behaving that way without conversation, you're probably judging rather than understanding. Assumptions are dangerous. Real understanding requires curiosity, asking those questions and having those conversations, seeking to understand before certain. Interestingly, we often do the same thing with ourselves. We're constantly pursuing goals and reacting to situations and making decisions, chasing outcomes without fully understanding what we're actually after. That's why this practice right here matters. You need to ask yourself, what's driving your behavior? Now, you guys heard in my previous podcast, and again, there was that, I can't remember when exactly, but it was just after or between April 20th and like May 10th or May 15th, just before my birthday for sure. But there was one time where him walked by my classroom 24 times. May walked by my classroom 16 times. Staff walked by my classroom 10 times. This was all within probably an hour and a half. What's driving their behavior? What's driving their behavior? Could I have sat down and say, hey, man, I see that you guys are constantly walking by. To be honest with you, it's very distracting. And I'm not saying this, in a very attacking way, but this is really starting to get on my goddamn nerves. This is probably a little conversation that's going to be brought up tomorrow night. In terms of, okay, we're going to be going through things, 15-minute thing. And I say, if you guys say anything stupid to me, I literally have a list. And I'm not going to say this from a way that I'm looking. I got all these receipts, but I'm going to make you feel as uncomfortable as I've been over the last 2 months because y'all simply don't have my motherfucking back no more. And now I am Arsenio working within a place. I'm not going to be your friend. I'm not going to say hello. No, I'm not going to go to dinner with you. Okay. You do not have access to my personal time. You do not have access to my wife and everyone else. So you guys could fuck right off now. We are not cool. We could have the little short conversations. Hey, how you doing? Fantastic. How you doing? Great. All right, cool. See you tomorrow. See you when I see you. That's it. And it's so funny. It brings me back to 2017 again. That same garbage ass head teacher. And it just always reminds me because he's like, how would your colleagues think of you? And I'm like, bro, fuck my colleagues. These motherfuckers want me to just bitch about Thai people all day. And they are white men in one of the most racist times in Thai history towards Black people. Right now, it's like racism towards Indians and Arabs, right? Still, the tide is going back to Blacks and they're starting to act ignorant as fuck again, but still at the same time. But nonetheless, it reminds me of that. And I'm like, bro, fuck them. I'm not here to work for them. I'm not here to be their buddy. I know who you were. One was trying to record me. Okay? Without me knowing. But he pressed the button right in front of my face. Just the night before, he was trying to ask me, hey, you want to go out for a drink at 9:30 at night? Have you lost your motherfucking mind? What are you looking for? suspicion. But remember, got to be careful with assumptions. You can bring the receipts and say, hey, I'm going to let you know these are the things that you guys are doing around here. It's making me a little bit uncomfortable, and especially my students. Why is this happening? What is driving that behavior? What is driving your behavior? That's a question that I'm going to have to bring up. What is driving your behavior to walk by my class and interrupt and always have my students look through that window? Why did you do that? What's driving your behavior? It's all about questions. It's all about curiosity. So if I go in there with a curious mindset, just in case they end up acting ignorant, we could actually achieve something. Now, let's go into the deeper part. Enough about my life, conscious or unconscious. Sometimes our behavior is just conscious, right? Sometimes it isn't. Many behaviors are automatic, okay? They seem unconscious because we've repeated them for so long. Of course, conscious and unconscious motivations, they overlap too, right? So, but human behavior is like rarely simple, but becoming more aware is the beginning of the personal growth journey. So here we go. These are the 5 forces that drive that behavior. Number 1, conditioning. A great deal of human behavior comes from conditioning, kind of like Elon Musk's bullshit ass daddy. His daddy's a pathetic, disgusting human being, and so he is. People were taught certain beliefs, and they were rewarded for their actions. That's it. That's the definition of what America is, colonial America, right? And then sometimes you're punished for others. And after years of that repetition, those behaviors become automatic. It's a lot of, I would have to just say white racism. I have to say it going on YouTube. And they always say pattern recognition, pattern recognition. I'm like, yeah, the pattern recognition in terms of you guys literally colonizing every motherfucking country over the last 500 years. Oh, I got pattern recognition for days and I got evidence. Just saying, just making a point. Maybe you've been taught how to think about success. Maybe teachers rewarded compliance. Maybe caregivers shaped how you respond to conflict. For some people, early experiences included probably neglect, criticism, rejection, or mistreatment. And as a result, they developed adaptive behaviors to protect themselves, right? They learned to strive harder, to fight for belonging, to avoid conflict, to seek approval. That's one thing, especially with me. Back in 2015, 2016, I'm like, I'm going to make a podcast and show these Thai women that I'm a good man and that not all Black people are pimps and drug dealers. Shit. Jesus Christ. Just imagine if I led with that mindset over the last 11 years, I would be totally fucked today. So the problem is that a lot of adults right now continue operating from patterns that were developed decades ago. And the conditioning remains active even when the circumstances have changed. So personal growth requires you revisiting those patterns and asking whether they still serve you. Number 2, commitments. People are often driven by those commitments, commitment to family, to work, values, identities. Some people become deeply committed to a certain way of being. They begin saying things like this, that's just who I am. Sometimes that's commitment to maybe that sometimes that commitment is healthy, but is in terms of that's just who I am, that's unhealthy. Is rigid. People cling so tightly to a belief, value, or identity that they stop learning. They become defensive, uncertain, and fixed. And meanwhile, relationships deteriorate. Opportunities pass them by. Growth slows down. A healthier approach is to remain committed while staying open, follow through. Honor those values that you have, in which maybe you have a couple, and also continue learning, exploring, and adapting. Number 3, care. Many behaviors are driven by care. People want to feel safe. They want to feel like they belong and they get that respect and they have security. Often those behaviors we see are attempts to care for ourselves. Sometimes they look healthy. Other times they look like it's all about people pleasing and overextended and placating or constantly trying to fit in. See, I'll say that one more time, or constantly trying to fit in. I'm not going to constantly try to fit in when I got people being two-faced and just switching it the fuck up on me. I ain't trying to do all that. Now the question now becomes, is the way I'm caring for myself actually helping me forward? Because care without growth can become stagnation. When people experience progress and momentum and advancement, they tend to become more intentional about their behavior. That number 4, capability. Sometimes the answer is much simpler than we think. People don't know how. They lack the skills, they lack the knowledge, the confidence, the experience. And many people feel insecure, not because they're incapable, but because they haven't developed those capabilities necessary for that situation yet. So before assuming someone is lazy and resistant or unmotivated, consider the possibility maybe they simply don't know how. And because they don't know how, they never want to start. That's one of the biggest things. And that number 5, the chaos, is the biggest one. This is the funnest one. A lot of people's behaviors, if you look at the state and the consciousness of the entire United States of America, it's driven by absolute chaos. That's what it's driven by. Life just happens. Sometimes people experience loss. A relationship ends, a business fails, the world changes, isolation increases, stress compounds, uncertainty grows. Even highly capable people can lose confidence in rhythm and meaning and momentum when enough chaos enters their lives. If you see this right now, people are absolutely consumed by outrage, division, fear, and reaction. The United States is literally the definition of that. The majority of Europe is the definition of that. The continent of Africa, thank God they're okay. The continent of South America, thank God they're okay. I would have to say certain parts of the continent of Asia are okay. But Australia and New Zealand's absolutely fucked. It's not what it used to be. And I don't know if social media just amplified it, but it's all about engagement. People are driven by hate and race bait and rage bait. That's exactly what this entire world is. So what can you do to protect yourself and to make sure you protect your peace on a routine basis so that you're not inundated with what the world is not? That's not what the world is. These are just, and unfortunately, the majority of the people that you see doing this on a routine basis, these are the bad actors. I would have to say a lot of the motherfuckers who are absolutely and blatantly racist out there right now, they're not even that. They're just doing that because they have an engagement and they could get a lot of money from the audience. Crazy as hell, isn't it? And often the issue, again, like I said, they're not bad people, maybe. I mean, I could say right now, there are a lot of them that are some bad motherfuckers. But often what it means is that the chaos has overwhelmed their sense of structure and control. That's Napoleon Hill's law of success, self-control. If people read that chapter, it would change their life completely. But people don't want to. And people don't want to experience growth. They just want to continue waking up and obliterating people online. See, boundaries become essential during chaotic seasons. I'm in a chaotic season right now. See, boundaries help restore rhythm, which I did. Boundaries help restore agency. Hey, my students are the only ones that matter. I could give a damn about who thinks about what I am. They are more than happy to come knock on my door and say what's up. I got 2 folks here that actually are really nice, and then the other 2 I can give a damn about. I don't give a damn. And anyone else above us, I absolutely don't give a damn. Okay, I'll just nod my head. How you doing? Goodbye. Ain't got nothing else to say to you. But I will always double down on your bullshit. So I have boundaries. You do not have access to my personal time. You do not have access to my joy anymore. You don't have access to my vibrancy and that emotional stability and that beauty that literally fills my spirit every morning. You don't get that access anymore. You've betrayed my access. You've betrayed everything. So then I had to restore that peace, and that's exactly what I did. If work communication creates constant stress, like stress and stuff like that, you need to establish clear expectations. Decide when you will check messages. There you go. That's what I did. And you guys are probably going to hear this coming up, the month of July, just to make it like much, much deeper and stuff like that, because it was like a real deep podcast. But I said, okay, all right, okay. You just made a PowerPoint slide and you said no messages, no email, no line during classes. And I'm like, oh my God, he's like literally making a mockery of me. That's the 4th time he did that. And I'm like, okay, check this out. You only have 2 times that you can get in touch with me. That's 11 a.m. That's 4:30 p.m. I am unavailable between 4:31 p.m. all the way until 11 a.m. the next day. I've turned off my emails. I will check them 11 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. That's it. So I decide now, and again, we're going to be talking about this over the next few podcasts. You need to decide where to take back that goodness. It comes with the choice. Are you going to take it back? Decide when you're going to respond. Protect your attention, protect your energy, protect that peace. You can be assertive without being reactive. You can maintain standards without carrying anxiety. You can respond with clarity, professionalism, and grace. And so your challenge this week, what's driving the behavior? When you're frustrated, distracted, highly motivated even, someone surprises you, you're stuck. The goal isn't to judge. It's more like meditation. It's to understand, because awareness creates choice. And so I want you to set a reminder 3 times a day that simply asks, what's driving this behavior that I'm doing right now? Journal one behavior each evening. Conditioning, commitments, care, capabilities, chaos, one of those 5. Before reacting to someone this week, ask one curious question instead of making an assumption. And I'm going to say, hey, curious, why is it that you, and again, because we're pointing out all the negatives instead of pointing out the positive, walking by my classroom doing this and that. Hey, this one curious question. That's all there is. Don't take it offense. But hey, since we are here, let's be here. Let's go. Okay, fantastic. Okay, have a good evening. Likewise. Assertive, professional, and that's it. You do not get that joy anymore. My students get that joy. They're the ones that absolutely, this is the students that I have had. I want to say all of them, but I would say if I had 30 students, I would say that I would say about 22 of them absolutely love what I bring to the table. The other 8 are just kind of like a bunch of shoulder shrugging, folks. Okay, some of them are just very non-engaged. And I'm like, well, why are you even here? Some of them, they like to bitch and complain and all these other different things. I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm not down with that. So before reacting to someone this week, ask that curious question. Identify, and this is number 4, one old pattern that may have served you years ago, but no longer serves you today. Number 5, create one boundary that protects your energy, focus, and peace. Number 6, notice those moments of progress and ask what behaviors help create that momentum. Number 7, end the week with reflection. Which of the 5 drivers showed up most often in your life? The goal isn't about perfection. It's about awareness. Awareness creates choice, and choice creates change. I'm your host as always, over and out.